Welcome to the PickSix podcast, everybody. It is officially the off season, and that means for Will Brinson, he's taking off. Breech, it's me and you. He said he's doing quote unquote stuff at school, which to me means he's on the back nine. He was at a place where he didn't have cell service, so he texted us and said he would be late. And in Devo's great wisdom, he said we're just going to do it without Brinson.
That's funny because I assumed that he just took his $80,000, flew to Bermuda, and was never going to talk to us again. Which still could happen because we haven't seen him all week. We don't know what's going on anymore. We'll just wait this one out. Who knows?
If you're watching on the old YouTube machine, you'll notice that Breech and I are matching.
Oh my God.
Is embarrassing on any number of levels. Breech also shaved his head, so we have matching hairdos. So look for that. YouTube.com/PickSix.
This is unbelievable that we're matching. So I logged in, I see Wilson, and I just put my hand on my head because Wilson is literally the last guy I want to match. Nothing, no insult to his fashion sense, but okay, it's an insult to his fashion sense. But CBS sent us some pullovers for the Super Bowl. And apparently we got them on the same day because we just decided both wear them. I broke mine in yesterday.
Oh, I didn't get mine till literally right before the show, so they must like you better. All right, so you listen to the PickSix podcast. In the feed, we have the way too early power rankings. Devo, those Prisco's power rankings?
They are Tyler Sullivan's power rankings. Prisco just does end of the year power rankings. So we criticized him a little bit. Like, of course the Bucs are going to be number one at your end of year power rankings, but Sully spun it forward and did the way too early 2021 because we know what happened in 2020. So he's looking ahead.
Thank you,
and Wilson, no one can get a hold of Prisco during the offseason, so let's not pretend he was going to take some time to put together a power rankings for next season. He's like, guys, I just finished my 2020 power rankings.
I spent a lot of time with Pete last week. A great time. Great to be back around people, and especially Pete. I sent him an email this week. Hey, Pete, would love to catch up with you on your power rankings. It's the only request I'm going to make of you all of February and probably for a long time. I get a one-word response. And by
the way, Breech, I don't know. Actually, I do know. Next week, I'm doing my end of year power rankings. The Bucs will still be first, and the week after that, you're doing yours. I think the Bucs will be first as well. So look forward to those. That's not really happening. That's a joke. So on this episode, Breech and I are going to talk about the offseason preview and ways that we can think about getting Brinson fired since he just left us hanging in the lurch. Next week on Monday, it's the first mock draft Monday. Breech. Apparently, I'm the junior mock draft analyst, so. I'm on that'll be version 24 of the mock draft for me. That's how I measure my life now, and what version of mock draft I'm on. So 24 means that we're 2/3 of the way there. I think usually I do 34 mock drafts before the draft.
Is that one extra important? Because that's where you officially hit if somebody reads one of your mock drafts 1 hour per day for an entire day, that fills their entire day.
Can you imagine?
That's a big one.
Also, we're at the point in the year where a lot of sports are happening. Yes, the NFL just wrapped up, but we still have NBA, college hoops, hockey, golf. That's why we wanted to tell you about the CBS Sports app and how it's not just the best scoring app for your phone, but it's also where you get breaking news alerts, stories by us, not me, because I don't write anymore, but Brinson, Breech for sure, standing schedules, teams, download it, re-download it. It's got that little cloud logo next to it on your phone, and you know we love those 5-star ratings. So don't hesitate to drop one for the old app and the PickSix podcast too, if you don't mind. Tell us why Brinson is your least favorite member of the PickSix podcast. And if you do, tweet a screenshot along with a mailbag question for us to use on an upcoming episode. All right, Breech, let's get into it. 2021 offseason preview.
Wilson, I don't want to be the guy that's going to defend you against yourself, but you said you don't write anymore. But then in the same breath, you said you've done 24 mock drafts. You still write. Brinson doesn't write anymore.
That's true. I write once a week. Brinson writes 0 times a week. Breech writes a lot still. In fact, Breech, you said, what's the stat you gave us between the Aaron Rodgers engagement story and the Super Bowl live blog? How close was it?
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy how many people are interested in Aaron Rodgers being engaged. That is all I'll say about that.
Oh, you don't want to get fired. I see where that's going. All right, so let's do this. So a year ago, we had the combine. I was there. Brinson wasn't. The players were there. No one's wearing masks because no one really knew exactly where we were in this pandemic. And everything seemed pretty normal. And then the pandemic starts as free agency opens up. Free agency was sort of weird. Then we had the virtual draft, no OTAs, no mini camps. And then we somehow made it through the season. And refresh my memory, no games canceled. A few games moved back. If we're being honest, the Steelers probably got screwed more than any team in the league. And that's why they didn't win the Super Bowl, because they had to reschedule all their games. the Bills actually caught the short end of the stick and somehow managed to overcome it. So maybe that's not an excuse for the Steelers. So let's start with 2021, Breech, on what I think by just about any measure was a pretty successful 2020 NFL season. This is your big thing, so I'm glad Debo put it at the top of the rundown. What will the salary cap be? You were yelling and screaming for months. It's going to be 175. I heard last week it might be 185. How do you feel about that?
I don't think 185 is crazy. Here is the wild thing. CNBC had a report this week that said the NFL wants to get the new television deal done before they set the salary cap number. So that basically means you have 1 month from today, because free agency starts March 17th. You have a little over 1 month to get the deal hammered out. And then that way, you know what kind of revenue you're going to be bringing in through the end of the decade. And then if you know that number, you can pull, say, $5 million or something off future salary caps so that the 2021 salary cap doesn't take a big tumble. And so that, I think that's why we started at 175. That was the floor. It had to be 175. That was the minimum. It was always going to be at least that number. But as I guess the NFL gets closer to getting this television deal done, that's why we've heard these other numbers leak out. And, you know, if this deal ends up being 10 years, $100 billion, maybe they pull even more from future salary caps and they say, all right, let's just have a flat cap, which means even from 2020. So the teams aren't being hamstrung trying to put things together. So yeah, I think 185 is probably the safe number right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if it does get up to like 198, which is what it was in 2020. And Wilson is nodding his head, calling me crazy.
Yeah, you just fear mongering all through the season about 175. Teams have to make all these decisions. Players should take 1-year deals so it can come back and sign bigger deals. I think, when has the salary cap ever been an issue in the last 5 years? It feels like we all worry about the salary cap November through January, and then March comes and the accounting wizards for each team figure it out.
Well, it hasn't been an issue for the past 5 years because it's gone up $10 million a year, Wilson.
Why do you keep I tried to combine complaining and bellyaching into one word. Why do you keep bellyaching about it?
Well, I mean, if you're the Saints and you're $100 million over the salary cap, that seems like an issue. And if you're a team that's $20 million over, but all of a sudden the cap's going to go up $20 million, you're not over at all. So, you know, it really impacts the teams that I'd say right now are like 5 to 10 to $15 million over, because if all of a sudden the cap goes up 5, 10 or 15, then you're not over anymore. So that's a huge help. And according to Over the Cap, there are about 6 teams that are about $15 million over the cap going into. So that's a huge impact for those 6 teams.
Yeah, but Wilson, I think to your point that it's not going to be an issue because it always seems to work itself out. So
what will be work it out?
Yeah, not the Bengals. What we're saying. What will be an issue this year? And the Bengals like $4 billion under the cap. The old combine. Combine's not happening, so no one will be there. 2 years ago, Breech, we were the last ones there doing hits for HQ in the hallway. And probably one of the weirdest like interactions we've had work related. We're like standing there on a Tuesday or whatever it was, like just talking about the combine with no one else there. But I would actually kill for that right now. We're not going to be there. No one's going to be there because the combine is going to be regional in some sense. It's a lot, mostly just collecting height, weight measurements, and then the medicals will be for the players close to wherever they're actually working out or living. And all the interviews will be Zoom related. Your thoughts? Do you think that's good or bad in terms? Because sometimes, and you know, we see this all the time. Teams overthink players, and a lot of times it's that seeing them in person and seeing them run a 4.4 and seeing them look shredded. Is that going to alleviate some of that? Is this better? Is this worse? What do you think?
I think it's better for the players. Look, if you're sitting in a Zoom interview, I can have someone off screen coaching me, listening in, holding up note cards to have answers ready. I mean, every player's going to come out polished. Every team's going to be like, this guy was brilliant. He's ready to go. So I think from a player's perspective, this is a good thing. From a team's perspective, it makes it more of a wild card. And then also, so the only time they're going to see these guys work out is at the school's pro days. And it does seem like, every pro day is not built equally. So at the combine, it's all, and the NFL's running it. So everybody's on the same footing, but it's indoors. You don't have to worry about the weather. Some of these pro days are outdoors. There's just a lot of things going on where you're not on even footing. So I do think it makes it more difficult for NFL teams to assess the players, but not, I think it's, if you're the player, you get to be in your home stadium and you get to do Zoom interviews where you can get help. So I think it's good for the players.
I didn't even think about that. They could write the answers on their hand and look off screen.
Like, wait, what? Yeah.
have it on their hat. Be like, oh, just a minute. I scratch my head. Nice call, Breech. I do think it's good in terms of teams not talking themselves into players they don't like, but they fall in love with because they see them in person because they ran fast in a straight line in shorts. I think that is good, but it is going to create some challenges. But challenges, it seems like these teams have been dealing with for nearly 12 months now. So things are going to change. We'll see what happens with the pandemic in terms of people getting vaccinated and how close to normal things are by the time training camps and the season rolls around. But I think it's going to change either way because we 17 games. Isn't that right? Is this 17 games go time now?
Not yet. It's NFL is allowed to put it into place. So all they have to do is flip the switch and make it happen. But the owners have to agree on what year it's going to happen. And just because, I guess, do you want to add a 17th game in the middle of a pandemic? Is the only question. I would think, and Roger Goodell was asked about it. He just said, we're trying to get through the Super Bowl. We'll figure that out in the offseason. I mean, I would say 95% sure, yes, it's going to happen.
Right.
But it's not a done deal just yet. It's been approved. It just has to be approved for what season's going to happen, because it could happen in 2022 or 2023 if it doesn't happen in 2021. But it should happen in 2021.
Here's my thinking. I feel like it seems like, according to the old medical experts, that things will be close to normal by late summer, perhaps, something like that. And if I've learned anything about covering the NFL, it's that typically NFL owners don't like losing money. So if adding a 17th game on the tail end of a pandemic where things are looking better means they can make a lot more money, I guess they're going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, and especially if you're hammering out the new television deals, you're like, all right, guess what, guys? There's an extra game you get that you are going to be paying for. And like you said, the owners, I think the NFL, everybody lost to combine maybe $4 billion was the estimate because of the low attendance number in 2020. And so you want to make that money up. And so the way you do that is getting that 17th game in there.
So we're looking forward here, but before we go to the break, we got to talk about this. What did you think of drunk Tom Brady at the Tampa Bay Super Bowl celebration parade that happened on Wednesday?
I loved it. Look, if Tom Brady wants to be out drunk, and I mean, I would literally watch
at 2 p.m.
I would watch Tom Brady share videos of himself drunk all day if that was an option. And you know what? Here's what I'm going to say to defend Tom Brady. I don't think there was a lot of people out there saying, oh, Tom Brady's a bad role model, but just think about it. Everyone has been locked up in their house for 11 straight months. And the first chance you get to party, you're going to get Tom Brady Super Bowl parade drunk. Like, that's going to enter the national lexicon. If somebody says, hey, man, I heard you're going to a bachelor party next month because COVID's over, how drunk are you going to get? You're going to say Tom Brady Super Bowl parade drunk. I mean, that's just what it's going to turn into. So I am thrilled that Brady did this. I thought the Lombardi trophy throw was like the most insane thing I've ever seen at a parade, but simultaneously the most awesome thing I've ever seen at a parade. So I'm fine with everything.
I have so much more respect now for Tom Brady for those two things you mentioned than I did before, because look, historically, Tom Brady is Derek Jeter. He's Russ Wilson. He's Peyton Manning. He is boring as balls. And I love the fact that he was off script. And I'll be honest, when I first saw the clip of him being helped out by Tampa Bay assistants walking off the boat, I thought either, oh my God, this guy is so seasick he can't walk, or something like he's having a stroke. Like, I didn't think, oh, it's 2 p.m. and he can't see because he had 27 beers, which made me like him even more. He was stumbling around. It was fantastic.
Ryan, you might be one of the only people that thought, like, I consumed a lot of Twitter yesterday with reactions to that. I don't think anyone thought anything other than drunk, right, Breech?
No, I mean, it was literally 99.9999999% people thought he was drunk, and the 0.00001 was literally just Wilson.
Just me. But here's the thing. You don't want to be the guy that, well, Brinson does, and Breech actually had a field day tweeting about this too. But my first thought always is, okay, if this guy's having a stroke, I'm not going to tweet a drunk joke and then find out that he died 2 hours later in a hospital. So I wanted to double check.
And I mean, the best part was, and I tweeted this, but like, this thing went full Weekend at Bernie's, where Brady had like people propping him up to like make sure he looked somewhat functional. And let me just say, if you're partying hard and you lived through it and you went full Weekend at Bernie's, that's a good day. So
yeah,
good for Tom Brady.
Just don't get in the car and drive home, but knock yourself out on the boat. I do want to hear the behind the scenes story on the Tampa Bay guy who had to drag him out of there to keep him from falling down. Because that guy was tall. He must have been like 6'3", 6'4", because he was the same height as Brady. But I want to know like how his day went. A TikTok from like 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. when he had to take Brady to wherever. Because Brady tweeted a short time later about it's all good avocado ice cream or something, didn't he?
Yeah, he purposely he tweeted they took avocado tequila shots, which
that's what it was.
And spelled half the words wrong. So like he knew he has his social media guys on, like, Tom, you're trending on Twitter. You got 500,000 likes on your last tweet. We got to send something else out. How about avocado tequila? Let's go with that. And like next week, 100% chance Brady introduces avocado tequila.
Right.
I argued with Brinson. I legitimately don't think that was more than 3.5 drinks that Tom had, just because of his history, his lack of drinking, his diet, everything combined. Brinson argued, he's pushing double digits there. I don't know. I think it's a low amount to get Tom Brady to that level.
All right. So let's say
I agree.
Let's say he's drinking, he probably wasn't drinking beer. Let's say he's taking shots of tequila or whatever. I'll put the over under at 5.5 that he had over the course of 3 or 4 hours.
I'll say under 5. I feel like he was like at 4 or 5. I think he probably had avocado toast for breakfast. Didn't think it through. It was like, this will get me through the day. Alex Guerrero said I'll be fine. All of a sudden, you're like 3 tequila shots in, 1 White Claw, and you're blitzed. You're gone. You're out.
Actually, that I could see that. He weighs 230 or 220 though. I mean, that's a lot.
But I don't feel like he drinks often.
Yeah, no, that's right. You can't be that age. And but I will say the underrated storyline for me, we're talking about him stumbling around. That Super Bowl trophy throw, the Lombardi trophy throw, was awesome on every level. Part of me wanted it to like come up short, hit the boat, knock a hole in the boat, and sink the boat, because that would have been funny too. But Cameron Brate, who caught it, said it was the best catch of his life, and it was like, I don't care if the trophy goes underwater. Like, I don't give a crap about that. I don't think at the end of the day it matters. But it made for some great drama, and it was a fantastic catch and a pretty good throw on a boat. Those boats must have been 20 feet apart.
Yeah, they were pretty far apart. And here's the thing, like when I first saw the clip of it, I was like, is he, and my favorite part of the clip, first of all, is that his daughter is sitting down, like totally aghast. She is like, Dad, are you really doing this? She was in total shock. If you see,
I didn't see her. How old was she? Do you know? Was she like a teenager or something?
Nah, she's like 7.
Oh, okay.
She's definitely younger. But she was on the boat just like in shock. And so here is what blew my mind, is that when you're thinking about throwing a Lombardi trophy, there's a few results that can happen, and most of them are not good. So, like you just said, one, it ends up in the water. I think Florio wrote that water's 80 feet deep. So you're not getting that trophy back.
Some idiot's going down there and getting it.
Someone's going in. They might drown because they're all drunk. So that's a negative. Number 2, if someone does try and catch it, that thing would crack their head open. Like that could kill someone. Tom Brady kills someone with the Lombardi trophy would end up being like the ultimate NFL headline of all times.
What if it's a short throw? Gronk tries to dive and save it, falls in the water, gets run over by the boat. I mean,
like that could happen. So the fact that it turned out so perfectly is really rather amazing. It could have been a disaster.
How much do you think the Lombardi trophy weighs?
Let's see. Like, it can't. It's 10 pounds.
I think I read somewhere that was 7 pounds. I'm gonna.
Okay.
It's 7 pounds.
Okay.
I assumed even more than that. It just looks more like, I know the Stanley Cup is the heaviest trophy and it's not nearly the size of that, but like 7 seemed a little lighter than I thought.
Well, think about trying to throw a 10-pound like barbell 20 feet to someone. True. I mean, I wouldn't do that.
Well, that's the thing. It's the weird shape of it. Like you're not catching a football. You've got the whole base you're trying to catch. I mean,
that's some avocado.
Cameron Brate.
Stanley Cup is 35 pounds, so no one's tossing that. The Lightning did the same boat parade. We're not seeing that.
that was
hilarious.
Awesome. All right. I mean, that's the most Tom Brady thing ever. It all comes off perfectly, even though like the chances. He's the guy.
He's the only guy that could have gotten away with that, right?
That's
no
right.
one else is even daring throwing the Lombardi trophy off a boat.
Blaine Gabbert. They're throwing Blaine Gabbert off the boat if he comes with that idea. Like Tom Brady's the guy. If the pilot has a heart attack on the 747, that he lands the plane like while checking his text message. Like he's that guy. That's how good Tom Brady is. So congratulations, Tom Brady. Congratulations on getting drunk for the first time. It's good to see you have your first beer. Let's take a break, Breech, and we'll come back and talk about some things going on as we look forward. All right, Breech, Tom Brady, best ever. We all agree. GOAT for many reasons. Let's talk about some guys who are maybe GOATs in the other direction. I only said that so I can make the Carson Wentz joke. Let's start with Carson Wentz. Is he going to the Colts or Bears? Is he staying put? What's going on with Carson Wentz?
I think the Colts are the only team that makes sense because if you go to Chicago, like John DeFilippo's there, I get that. So he was the quarterback coach for the Eagles in 2016 and 2017. So you're familiar with him, and that's good. You want to go somewhere. It just feels like Carson Wentz has a low confidence level right now. So you want to be somewhere where the coach already knows your talent. And I think that would make him the most comfortable. So that's why the Bears make sense. That's why the Colts make sense with Frank Wright. But if you go to Chicago, they've made it pretty clear there, the front office, that everyone is on the hot seat. Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, if they don't win in 2021, everyone might get fired. So if you're Carson Wentz and you go there, yeah.
So knowing that, and those guys are on the hot seat, and we all agree they probably should be, why would you bring in a guy who just got his coach fired and just sort of wormed his way out of a job because he got benched for playing terribly?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. So you're taking a huge risk. It's probably John DeFilippo sitting in a room saying, "We got to do this. Let's trade for Wentz. We don't worry, he won't go 2-14, and we won't all lose our jobs. I promise." Jeez. But then you know what? He's like, "Well, I'm going to lose my job anyway if this guy isn't good." So I don't know why you would, but there aren't that many quarterbacks. You have to pick a quarterback you can take that you can afford the compensation and a trade. And so Carson Wentz is probably. When you're talking about a guy like Deshaun Watson or even Russell Wilson, like Carson Wentz becomes the affordable guy. And so maybe you try to go after him. But I think the Colts is just too logical for this because Frank Reich knows exactly what Wentz can do. Wentz will actually have weapons and offensive line, things he didn't have in Philadelphia. And, if he can't succeed in Indianapolis, his career's over, but I am still going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he just has not had a great team around him the last 2 years. We can put half the blame on him, half the blame on the team out there. But I think the Colts make the most sense.
So one of the talking points has been that the Eagles were looking for similar to Matthew Stafford / Jared Goff compensation, which would be 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick for Jared Goff. And if you just sort of cancel out the first-round pick for Jared Goff, it's basically the other first-round pick and a third-rounder for Carson Wentz. I would not do that. I would give a second-round pick and maybe a player for Carson Wentz. Where are you at on that?
If I'm picking in the low 20s, I would consider giving up a first-round pick, and the Bears are, which that makes it interesting, and so are the Colts. So, but I'm not giving up much more. I mean, if you're talking about what if Wentz gets the Colts the AFC title game or even the Super Bowl, and all you had to give up was a first-round pick? I mean,
what makes you think that's going to happen?
But what makes you think? What would he have to do for the trade to bomb? Like go 6-10? If they go 9-7 or 10-6 with Wentz, it's still not a horrible trade. Like what
for the Colts?
What you're the draft guy? What's the Colts? What are the Colts going to target with that first round pick?
They get cornerback. I mean, they are looking for a quarterback, obviously. Defensive help. They need offensive tackle because Costanza.
So would you rather draft a crapshoot quarterback or use your first round pick on a quarterback who's already had one almost MVP season?
Well, clearly the answer to that is Carson Wentz, but I also would rather kick the tires on someone like Derek Carr, he's going to cost more than Carson Wentz. So there are other options to consider. I mean, I don't know. Debo, where are you at in Carson Wentz? Where's he going to be next year? Do you want him in Philly? And seriously, what are your expectations for how he's going to play wherever he ends up?
All good questions. I think Breech and I are surprised that there hasn't been an emergency podcast at this point. When we were doing our Sunday live stream, Breech predicted Tuesday we would have one. I said today would be the day. Today isn't Thursday before you guys are listening to this. So who knows? Maybe something is already in the feed. I thought something would have happened by now. I'm in the very, very low minority where I do still think he can succeed with the Eagles. I think we're probably past the point of no return with Carson Wentz and kind of his relationship with the organization. So I do see him moving on. I do think he can be successful. So I think the Colts are the best spot for that. I think the Broncos are an interesting one. Now, I don't know how realistic or logical it is, but that's a situation where he does have some weapons with the receivers and a building offensive line. It is someone, as Brinson mentioned, Benson, whatever we want to call him. I don't reference that guy anymore. He skipped out on us. But on a previous show, said he seems like a John Elway type of risk that John Elway would take. So the Broncos are an interesting one to me. I do not expect to get a Matt Stafford type of deal. I don't think the Eagles expect to get that, but we were even talking to get one first rounder. That was the conversation we were having in early January would be a win. So I do think that is a win. And I do think it is something that the Eagles should target to get a first rounder for Carson Wentz because of the success that we've seen in the past. For the billionth time, he's not as bad as he was in 2020. I don't think he's as good as we saw in 2017. But I think he could be a very good quarterback with a situation around him, get him to the places that Breech was talking about.
Hey, Breech, if you're the Saints, and Debo mentioned them as a possible landing spot for some of these quarterbacks, would you rather trade a first-round pick for Carson Wentz or re-sign Jameis to whatever he's going to make, $15, $20 million a year?
If I'm going to go higher risk at quarterback, I'll just keep the guy I already know. I'll keep Jameis Winston instead of trying to teach Carson Wentz my system, trying to get him situated there. I'll take a flyer on Jameis for a year and maybe he'll be good in Sean Payton's system. And if he's not, then you worry about you got a year to clear up all your salary cap problems, and then you throw away 2021 and start working to be good in 2022. So I keep Jameis.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too.
I'd be interested with Carson Wentz paired up with Sean Payton. Breech's points make a lot of sense, but man, I'd love to see a situation like that. I'm gonna be again in the minority, but I will root for him, whatever team he ends up on. So I'd like him to end up in a nice situation so I can have some validation.
So Debo, how much, doesn't sound like very much, are you concerned about the reports that he basically got Doug Peterson fired and that he was pretty much a butthole in the locker room and sort of worked his way out of town?
It's weird. It's really weird. Like I'm not, I know I come on here and I defend him and I really can't anymore, but I don't think he's a bad person. I understand the bad teammate thing and not relating to him. That makes a lot of sense to me, but it's still hard for me to wrap my head around it and fathom that he's just this like malicious type guy in the locker room and like getting people fired and traded and cut. I still can't believe that for whatever reason. Maybe I'm naive, but
you know what? I don't think he's malicious either. I think there is an important distinction that he is not a jerk in the sense that he's out there trying to ruin people's lives. I think he's just very competitive and he's super frustrated that he got benched and was playing terribly and was maybe looking for passive aggressive ways to sort of play that out. And part of that was blaming Doug Peterson or whatever the reports were. Jeff McClain wrote about it in the Philadelphia paper, and maybe that was complaining to ownership or whatever. But I don't think he's like vindictive or just like he wakes up in the morning seeing how he can ruin people's lives. I think he's probably a decent dude. I just think he's competitive and frustrated more than anything else.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to be a jerk or vindictive to like be pouty and get your way. Like if you're dating someone and you're kind of like over them and it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, all of a sudden you just like, I'm gonna stop calling them and texting them. I'm not gonna tell them I don't want to date anymore. I'm just gonna I'm gonna be passive aggressive about it and they're gonna know. And that's kind of feels like what happens there. Where Carson Wentz, there was nothing that he explicitly did, but maybe by his actions, it was like, all right, this isn't gonna work out between Carson and Doug.
Right. He wasn't sitting on the bench firing potato guns at Doug Peterson the back of his head while he's sitting on the bench. He was he had plans.
With that being the case, and we'll save some of this for the inevitable emergency pod, I'm going to end up being very wrong because there's no scenario that I could have imagined where both of them would have been gone this offseason. Right? Talking about Doug and Carson, one was believable, even though I didn't necessarily totally believe that. We're at the point where both are going to be gone, and Nick Sirianni's hired. I'm like, okay, Carson Wentz obviously is the week one starter at this point. That's the connection you make with Frank Reich and Jeffrey Lurie buying back in and all this. And now both are going to be gone. So I'm pretty lost with this organization right now.
Yeah, they feel rudderless right now, but if they start 3-1, they'll be fine. And that's the other thing. People think that the organization's in chaos. People said the same thing about the Steelers at the end of the season. And if they start 3-1, it'd be like, okay, they're going to win 10 games with Roethlisberger to lose in the playoffs. I just think we have to sort of wait and see. Although it is crazy to think that a year ago, if someone said, hey, Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz aren't going to be in the team in a year. What do you think about that? You'd be like, well, you're clearly insane.
Even crazier when they trade up for Justin Fields and he's your week one starter.
Let's get as many Jalen Hurts on the roster as possible and see what happens.
We'll save that for like the mock draft in mid-March or something.
Yep, mock draft Monday in March. That one's in the books. All right, Breech, what about Deshaun Watson? He's the guy that we've been talking about forever since the end of the season, and it seems like things are continuing to get worse and worse for the Texans. They've cleaned out a bunch of people, like the strength coach who was in the locker room manager who was close to Deshaun. They've been let go. I think just this week the president resigned, and there are reports that he wanted to resign as soon as Caserio was hired, but they wanted him to stay on to make it not look like there was tumult in the organization. Texans fans are irate and beside themselves. Deshaun Watson appears to be the same way. Is there any way that Deshaun Watson is on the Texans September, whatever week 1 is?
The whole organization's a disaster, so I'm going to say no. He does not want to stick around that disaster. I don't know where he goes though, because it's just so. I don't think the Texans are going to give him away, no matter how bad things get. They're not just going to be like, okay, fine, we'll take 1 first-round pick for Deshaun Watson. Bye. Like, I think they're going to play hardball.
Let me stop you. I think there are 15 teams that would give up 3 first-round picks and a player, though.
Yeah, in that case, then he's definitely getting traded.
Okay, well, then he's getting traded. Because, I mean, do you agree or disagree with my 15 over-under?
I don't know if there's 3 first-round picks.
And a player.
I just don't know how many, because a lot of general managers don't like to overthink it. And they're like, I don't want to mortgage the franchise for a guy who might come here and pull the same thing if he doesn't like our front office. Maybe he'll be unhappy here after a year or two. And so I do think a couple but the smart thing is if you can get your hands on a franchise quarterback, you have to do it. And so, I know we mentioned the Dolphins at some point this offseason. I feel like that makes the most sense because they don't have to, they have 2 first-round picks this year. And if you give up both of those for Deshaun Watson, that's not bad. That's a great trade. And you give up Tua. I think the Dolphins make sense, but maybe the Texans don't want to trade him to an AFC team because they don't want to be dealing with him all that often. So, I do think he gets traded, though.
I think he's traded. I think the Texans have less leverage with Deshaun than they would with any other player. And I think they can't wait around. That's the other issue. The clock's ticking because you can't do it in July, because then you're just screwing yourself. You don't know what your plans are at quarterback. And the whole thing is such a clown show, starting with the owner, Cal McNair, sticking by Jack Easterby, the former Patriots executive who came over. And as you read the reports, I don't know the man. I don't know the inner workings of the organization, but it sort of sounds like he's doing things that make a lot of people unhappy. But so it sucks for Texans fans. It sucks for Deshaun Watson.
Where do you think he ends up?
Maybe makes the most sense, but Chris Greer, the GM, said they're in on Tua, but I think you say that as just in case just in case you're stuck with Tua. Like the Jets make some sense, but and JLC's talked about this. Like the ownership is such a chaotic situation with the Jets ownership. Is that a place you want to be? I think he goes to the Steelers, Big Ben for Deshaun straight up, but that's just me. Where else? What about this? What about a Deshaun for Russ Wilson trade? Because Russ Wilson's been in the news recently. JLC wrote about him not being happy in Seattle. He's basically said on the Dan Patrick Show that he didn't like getting hit a ton, which it talks to the issues of the offensive line. And it's weird because we were talking about sort of Russ Wilson, Derek Jeter, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady never saying anything. This is the first time that Russ Wilson's actually said something that you're like, oh, those aren't just words that don't mean anything. He actually sounds angry about this and perhaps wants out. Because, I mean, the first half of the season, Russ Wilson was top 3 MVP. The second half
he was
of the season,
cooking.
He was
in
cooking.
the kitchen.
The second half of the season, he was a man that ran for his life for 2 straight months. So, Russ Wilson for Deshaun Watson, and then what are your thoughts on Russ overall?
Would the Texans do that only because Russell Wilson's 32 and Deshaun Watson's 25? And I think Russell Wilson also has a no trade clause. And do you think Russell Wilson wants to go to Houston? I feel like there's a 0% chance he wants to go to Houston.
Okay.
That would be a crazy trade. That would turn the NFL upside down. A Deshaun Watson for Russell Wilson straight up. I mean, Russell Wilson's never had a losing record. Oh, you know what? We'll send you to Houston. Why don't you see if you can continue that streak there, Russ? And this is another one where I don't think the Seahawks would want to send him to an NFC team because they don't want to worry about seeing him all the time. And the reason this fascinates me is, like you said, Russell's been a robot most of his career. He never complains, but he's reached he's past Aaron Rodgers level. You know, like Aaron Rodgers for the past few weeks making those passive aggressive comments, but he doesn't directly say what he's complaining about. Russell Wilson's like, screw that. I'm just going to say it, and we're going to see what happens. There's been reports that the Seahawks front office isn't happy, which understandably we knew that was coming. So now you just have a rift. And so how do you fix that? Because if you draft someone and that draft doesn't work out, you know, because Russell Wilson didn't okay him, you're not giving him any personnel power, that's just going to upset him more and create a bigger rift. So this does feel like a marriage that could be ending soon. And I feel like he'll be shipped off to the AFC if he gets traded.
It is crazy to think that, I mean, there was talk in January, once the regular season ended, that we could have 18 quarterbacks in new places. And no one at any point thought Russ Wilson would be part of that conversation. Yeah, here we are. So
let me ask you this. What do you think of what if the Jets traded the 2nd overall pick and Sam Darnold and another 1st round pick? Is that's
a lot. And here's the thing.
No, wait. Don't the Jets have the Seahawks pick this year?
Yeah.
The Jets have 2 first round picks, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Jets give up number 2, 23, Sam Darnold, and 1st round pick next year.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think you do that if you're Seattle, and because reports, PFT said there was a report that Seattle wasn't happy with Russ either. I don't know what that means, but if they're, you know, about to break up, as you like to use as an analogy, then that's a lot to get in exchange. Like Sam Darnold, I think is a throwaway at this point. If he ain't good behind the Jets O line, he's going to suck behind the Seahawks O line. But Russ, you know, his wife is Sierra. She's a singer, and she's successful and all that. So she might want to go to a big market as well. So yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's a Deshaun Watson type haul. I'd rather give that up for Deshaun Watson, but if Deshaun Watson is elsewhere, if he's in Seattle, for example, then maybe you don't. So another quarterback, he's going to be a free agent, I think, unless something happens. He is your pick. I saw on CBS Sports HQ.
I know where we're going.
To win the MVP in 2021. Also plays for the team that you picked to win the Super Bowl in 2020. They just missed out, apparently. Dak Prescott. What's going to happen with old what's Dak's real name? What's that stand for?
Let me clarify that he is my sleeper pick to win. I was asked for a sleeper pick and then an actual pick.
Rain Dakota Prescott. That's his real name. Let me clarify that picking Dak Prescott to win MVP is not a bad choice, especially juxtaposed against someone picking the Cowboys to win the Super Bowl in 2020.
And just so you know, they asked me for my sleeper Super Bowl pick. I did not pick the Cowboys. I pushed them off the table. I'm no longer associated with the Cowboys unless they re-sign Andy Dalton. Then we'll see. I don't know. Man, I mean, the Cowboys are going to tag him. That's what's going to happen here. They're going to hit him with the franchise tag, and then, you know, if a team's crazy enough to try and pull off some sort of sign and trade, I don't know. But that situation is going to be Dak getting the franchise tag, and then where do you go from there?
How do you feel about the Cowboys hype video for the offseason, not including Dak Prescott?
I mean, that's an interesting omission. I don't know that how you're the hype video person and you forget to leave off the team's quarterback, you know? Like, how do you think Brinson would feel if we made a PickSix hype video and we left off Brinson?
Oh, he'd be making it rain in his $80,000. He wouldn't care.
Oh my God. No, he would call up the person who made the hype video and leave Alec Baldwin-esque voicemail. It'd be a disaster.
Okay, so Dak's coming back. I agree. He's gonna be franchise tagged. We'll get out on this. Where is this team? I feel like they're let's see, it's them, the Giants, the football team, and the Eagles, Debo's Eagles. I feel like the Cowboys are probably the front runners in that division as we sit here, not knowing anything in early February. Where are you?
I think I look at it like this as the guy who picked the Cowboys in the Super Bowl last year. If you would have told Cowboys fans before the 2020 season that they were going to lose Dak Prescott in week 5 and still have a chance to win the division title in week 17, they wouldn't have believed that. Like, what? No, there's no way that's possible. And so, you know, they sucked at times. They were okay at times. But nobody in the NFC East is that great. So I feel like it's Dallas. I don't know. The NFC East is just a crapshoot at this point. Maybe the Cowboys are a slight favorite, but it's like 26% to 25 to 24 to 23.
Oh, good math. He did it quickly. Good job. All right.
Practice.
Yeah, I think that if all the divisions, that one is probably the most wide open in the worst possible way. Like the NFC West is wide open, but in a good way. The NFC East is like, okay.
Like Washington just won it, and we don't know what the Eagles quarterback situation is going to be. And the Giants actually looked good towards the end of the season. It looks like Daniel Jones is a little bit better.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be great. You know, like 9-7 could win 8-8 could win the division next year. 7-9 might win it again.
Did you guys pay Brinson yet?
Pay him for what?
For the NFC East bet? Wasn't.
Oh God, no.
Let's agree not to pay him based on his lack of appearance today.
I'm done. We were charging him $20 each for his no-show appearance. By the way, I would pay $20 a lot to not have him show up on this podcast. Just something to keep in mind. And I would imagine he would stay away for $60 a day.
He's got money to blow now.
I know.
That adds up. That'd be $300 a week to keep him away, Wilson.
Daddy Warbucks.
We did 406 podcasts last year. How many do that math? 60
That's
per show.
$60. It's like 24 grand, over 24 grand.
I'd pay that.
Wilson's signing his paycheck directly over to Brinson, so that they never have to co-host together.
All $24,000 of it. All right, that's it for the old podcast. Breech, come back Monday. You can listen Monday. You're not going to come back just because you're the junior draft analyst.
I don't deal with the mock draft stuff until March.
Mock draft. Mock draft Monday's coming up Monday, so check that out. Thanks for listening, everybody. And who knows, maybe Brinson will be back and feel like doing his job then. Until then, see yas.